Hi everyone, Big Joe here, and welcome to a very special kind of analysis. You see, at the time of recording this, I have analysed nearly 30 stories from Takagi no Takagi-san. And well, with that many videos under my belt, I've surely made a mistake here or there. And that is what this video is for. I'm going to go through my analysis videos one by one, find the mistakes, and correct them. If you notice a mistake that I didn't mention in this video, there are two things you should do. One, check out the outtakes and notes in the description below, as the mistake you're thinking of could have been cut. Or, if it's not there, let me know in the comments below. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Takagi announces herself as she goes through the front door. While I can't find any solid info on this practice, I have seen it done in some other shows before, so I can assume it's probably some sort of cultural custom. Who has two thumbs and learnt something in the last 8 months? This guy! Turns out what Takagi's saying here is ojamashimasu. And it is in fact a Japanese custom to introduce yourself when you enter somebody else's home. And of course I did not work this out on my own. I had help from Japanese speaker and all around awesome person, Reddit user Epsilus0. So thank you very much again. And steps towards Takagi-san to get her away from his bookshelf. Now this might not seem like an error, but actually it's something of a linguistical error when you take into consideration the way I like to explain things. I want an easy way to differentiate the character Takagi from the show Takagi no Takagi-san. So in every other instance except this one, if I say Takagi, I'm talking about the character. If I say Takagi-san, I'm talking about the show. Nishikata reflects on a similar situation in 100% Unrequited Love, where the protagonist uses a similar situation to get closer to the female lead. So most of this video is going to be kind of lighthearted and fun, but this is a mistake that I'm actually going to issue an apology for. This guy is not the protagonist of 100% Unrequited Love. This girl is. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what happened here. I think maybe I just assumed he was the protagonist because he was the guy, which is super sexist. So yeah, I'm really sorry for making that mistake. Firstly, she hears a wind chime and watches it for a while. At least I thought it was a wind chime until I did some research. Turns out it's called a Furin. According to... Well, I'm just kidding guys. I'm not actually going to subject you to that whole thing again. So what happened here? Well, as I said in the video, when I wrote wind chime into my script, I went and did a bit of research, I found out all this information, and I got a little bit excited. Now, this did happen a lot during my research for other analysis videos, but I was able to keep a bit of a leash on myself and only put in what was relevant. Firstly, it's the last story to take place in their first summer break. Okay, so while technically this is the last episode to fully take place during summer, it's not actually the last time we see Takagi and Nishikata in their first summer break. That honour would go to the very beginning of Typhoon when we see them mastering tandem riding. So before I get started with this analysis, just a few quick words. Wow, that was quick. Yeah, in terms of just technical proficiency, this is probably my worst analysis. For one, the audio is far too soft. For the rest of the mistakes, I'm going to have to artificially increase the volume just so you'll be able to hear what's going on. Also, you can probably tell that the images on screen aren't properly lining up with the screen itself. The reason this is happening is because the first lecture hall image I used, I just chucked a picture of a screen onto a picture of a lecture hall kind of willy-nilly, which, yeah, bad idea. Eventually I would redo the lecture hall and place the screen in a way that I knew exactly how to get images to fit. But until then I had to do it essentially by feel and work out a new way to do it every time, and this is the analysis that really shows how bad a system that was. Pointed out that the anime titles and the manga titles are more or less always the same, and that the translation I was using just wasn't all that great. I did not mean to come off so rude to the people who translate the Takagi-san manga. I have a lot of respect for those guys. If it weren't for them, this analysis series would not be nearly as good as it is. So the translations aren't bad. They just had the difficult task of translating these chapters before the anime even came around. It starts in episode 9 at 17 minutes and 14 seconds. Actually, it's 17 minutes and 40 seconds, not 14. Takagi says that she won't be deleting her photos, so Nishikata doesn't have to delete his. Yeah, I could have done this better. There's a bit of a stutter in the middle there. If I just removed a few more frames, there we go. Now hold your hats, folks, because this is where we get into theory territory. So you may notice that this is the only still image in the entire series that still has its subtitles, and there is a reason for that. You see, at this point in time, I'd not yet downloaded a subtitleless version of WaterTap. So the only version of this image I had is one that I print screened for my Takagi-san Makes Me Happy video essay. So yeah, when I did that video essay, the way I got my images was I literally opened up Crunchyroll and paused it at the right time, and sometimes I wasn't able to get it without subtitles. That was before I learned that you could just disable subtitles. And for the cherry on top, she told him she was embarrassed by it, which, if you recall, is the only reason that Nishikata doesn't wind up deleting it. Actually, the reason he kept it was because he wanted to. All Takagi really did was give him an excuse he was able to comprehend without his head exploding. However, just as he starts to throw the can, Takagi tells him that, "If you win, I'll give you my first kiss." And for those of you who like that line, I'm sorry to ruin it with my deep Aussie man voice. Hey Nishi boy, if you win, I'll give you my first kiss, eh? Yep, that was a mistake. First of all, Big Joe Productions, the parent company to this YouTube channel, has become a finalist for a business award, Startup Superstar. Yeah, I didn't win. It was still a really fun night though. In the manga translation I read, this was translated to turning point as opposed to critical hit. When I initially envisioned this analysis way back before I even started, I was going to do an entire paragraph based on how the title critical hit is so much better than turning point, and how I'm so glad that the anime creators changed the title. But that was before Epsilus Zero informed me that the manga did call it critical hit, and that I was just reading a funny translation. Again with the translation bashing. I'm very grateful to everyone who puts in time and effort into translating the manga, into restoring the scans, into typesetting. I have a great deal of respect for you all. Thank you for making those fan translations so that we can keep up to date with one of our favourite mangas. Thank you. And thank God for that, or I would have made a complete fool of myself. Again. Yep, still a mistake. Horror is part of what I like to call the cell phone trilogy, which starts with cell phone and ends with photo, which I've already analysed. Yeah, I said photo when I meant to say picture. Be surprised how often that happens. He asks if she was texting with her dad, to which she asks why she would ever text with her dad. Fun little side note, as I wrote this script, I got a text from my dad telling me that he was the one who bought that bottle of lemonade all along. And let me tell you, I'm glad he did. The mystery of that phantom lemonade had been haunting me all day. Oh, this isn't a mistake, I just really like this joke. Takagi gives him a hint. It's asked with I. Nishikata asks if it was with Nishi-san, to which Takagi says no. Actually, it's Ishi-san. Nishi would start with an N, not an I. Nishikata becomes embarrassed and looks to the ground until Takagi suddenly remembers that the word is ayagasa. Okay, the way I worded this makes it sound like Nishikata didn't actually answer the question, when in fact he did say ayagasa once. The reason he quote-unquote lost is because he wouldn't say it again. Nishikata is reaching critical mass, as Takagi explains it starts with an A and ends in an I, which I think is referring to the Japanese term ashitemasu, meaning I love you, which is strange because I always thought that daisuki or sukidayo was Japanese for I love you, but hey, it shows what I know. So Zero the Faceless had a thing or two to say about this. They guess she was more likely going for Aishiteru, which is supposedly a more watered down version of Aishitemasu. They also point out that daisuki and sukidayo could also be expressions of romantic admiration. However, those terms are not exclusively romantic, whereas Aishiteru is. Also interesting to note is that the song is sung by Takagi's voice actor using Takagi's voice. Oh boy, was this a blunder. Thank you very much to An Trung for pointing out my mistake here. The OP is actually sung by Yukio Ohara. The voice actor for Takagi, Ri Takahashi, sings the show's various EDs in Takagi's voice. Oh yeah, and as for the hat falling off, I think that's a reference to how some of Takagi's plans are actually a detriment to her. And today on Guess Which Part I Ad-libbed. The guy says it's fine, although he did promise to go down the water slide with her at some point. Nishikata asks again if it's really okay, but Nakai insists that it's completely fine. Actually, Nishikata only asks if it is okay once. The second time I'm referring to, he's actually only thinking about whether it's okay. Now that Mano has had a time with Nakai, she suggests that they do something that I'm sure she wanted to do all along. Float along in the lazy river. This, my friends, is what you would call projection. I assume Mano was probably always keen to go into the lazy river because that's what I would be doing if I went to that pool. Have you seen how often I upload these things late? I'm lazy, damn it! Get it? The whole analysis was a mistake. Get it? Okay, so what the hell happened to the bookstore analysis? Well, in the week I was working on it, I was also on holiday. And this is also back when part of my writing process was writing out a beach list, that is a list of every single plot point that happens before going on to write the actual script. So essentially, by the end of my holiday, I had written the beach list, but not the actual script, so I essentially ad-libbed the entire thing. It was soon after this, when I wrote down the beach list for Kickover, that I decided that I could not keep writing the entire plot beat by beat. Nishikata warns Takagi to be careful as the cat scratches. This leads me to believe that this could be the cat that left Nishikata's hand injured in pool. Actually, in pool, he was bitten by a cat, not scratched. Anyway, Nishikata watches along with a sense of excitement, clearly using this show where a guy makes fun of a girl as a form of escapism. However, if I go into the significance of 100% unrequited love in this video, we'll be here all day, so I guess I'll discuss it in another video. Yeah, funny thing about this is that the sense of escapism is really all there was to talk about. And I already said it. Only thing I want to point out here is the way this guy has his hand on his face. What is it with 100% unrequited love and using the rock and roll hand gesture? So turns out, this isn't a rock and roll hand gesture. No, the rock and roll hand gesture has the thumb over your middle fingers. No, what these guys are doing with the thumb out is the sign for love in American Sign Language. What I can't quite excuse though is the fact that if this popsicle is only available in the summer, then why are these guys in their school uniforms? So it turns out it's summer break in America that lasts for the entirety of summer. Whereas Japan has a much more sensible system of about a month in summer, about 10 days in spring, and about 10 days in winter. So that's why these guys are able to buy a summer exclusive ice cream while they are still in their school uniforms. For starters, she didn't teach him anything false. Even if it isn't on the upcoming test, he still has a better understanding of substitution, which can help him on a later test. So this isn't a mistake per se, but YouTube user Zero the Faceless had something to add. Math isn't exactly something you can learn out of order. You need to start with some things to be able to understand other things. The example Zero the Faceless provided is that you are unlikely to ever find anyone who can do multiplication without also being able to do addition. So even if substitution isn't featured in this test in particular, it doesn't mean that it won't come in use. This also happens to be the story that has gotten the most references given its significance to the overall show. I should have been a little more clear here. What I meant to say is that in my analysis series, fortune telling is probably the story that got the most amount of references. Not that this story gets referenced the most within the story itself. Takagi with rock, Nishikata with paper. He won. For the first time in the show, he actually wins a game against Takagi. Technically, this is his second victory, his first victory being in Who is Taller, but this is his first victory that isn't immediately undercut. It is undercut eventually, but just not immediately. He tells Takagi that that's what she gets for trusting fortune telling, but Takagi tells him that the prediction came true. Nishikata, who is confused with this, tells her that he won the game, and Takagi tells him yes, he sure did. I should have been a little more clear here. What's being implied is that Takagi intentionally lost the game of scissors, paper, rock so that she could spend time with Nishikata. But when Takagi asks why he's getting so aggressive, he says that he doesn't want to buy her juice. Actually, Takagi asks if he is getting aggressive, not why. And those are the mistakes that I picked up throughout my own analysis series. Do you know about any mistakes that I didn't point out here? Well, first make sure you check out my notes and outtakes to make sure that they just weren't cut. You can find them on my website. Links will be in the description. If you want to see the films that I write and direct, you can see them on my parent channel, Big Joe Productions. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.